Forget about it. It's Klayton from Celldweller here. How you doing? Good. I'm going to blab for the next hour or so over a bunch of demos, and this is a really painful process for me because I can't stand the sound of my own voice, and I don't like listening back to demos that I know sound like complete dog crap. So bear with me and don't mind the sobbing and the sniffling because I will be bawling my eyes out as I do this. So I'm going to walk you through what I'm considering the beta sessions demos for two songs, I Can't Wait and Gift for You, which are both on Chapter 4 of Wish Upon a Blackstar. So I'll get into some details about the things that you're hearing and why I wish you weren't hearing them and why I was foolish enough to actually go through with the ideas that you would be hearing at that particular moment. And then you'll have insight into all kinds of random things that you really couldn't have cared less about to begin with. But now you'll know, and in the event that maybe Jeopardy or one of these, shows or board games or something, you end up participating in them, you might have a piece of information here that could win you the game. It's highly unlikely, but I'm giving you the tools, and I hope you pick up the ball and run with it. Let's get into it, kids. I Can't Wait. So I remember thinking that I wanted to do something rhythmic here and kind of do a lot of percussion and a bunch of found instruments and pieces of scrap metal and other things, and I was going to create this cacophony of rhythm, and it was a grand idea, but by the time I actually got around to recording this, I just had given up pretty much on everything, but especially on this idea because it was just, it was too much work and I really needed to get the song done. So this goes back so far that I actually don't remember what inspired this song to begin with, the whole idea. And you can hear me screaming away here with sketch lyrics. This is something I do a lot of. I generally create a track, get into a groove, and I either scream or sing something completely unintelligible just so I can kind of work through melodies, or I will sit down and write lyrics on the spot, just anything that comes to my head just to get something intelligible in case I want to do a harmony. It's really hard to do a harmony to something that you just sung in Klaytonese, which is a fairly unintelligible language, mostly found in Celldweller songs, not really anywhere else in the world. So I'm sure that I progressed during these demos and some of my ideas were coming out, but I at this point can't even remember what I was thinking or why. I think this one goes back to 2006 is where this all started. But some of this was working through production, not only for vocal ideas, but riffs. That was the origins of that riff right there. And I knew what I was going for. I was kind of throwing back to Black Sabbath and Trouble, and even Slayer, which I think Slayer was really influenced by those kinds of bands, but I just love the idea of doing something more electronic, but with that kind of vibe, because that's really what I grew up listening to and I truly loved, but I don't really want to recreate that for myself. Another part of this that makes this really awkward for me, this whole commentary thing, is that because I'm not really sure what little things have changed in these demos until I hear them, I'm trying to fill space by just talking about stuff. Like that right here, now I can actually say something relevant like that. That's the guitar riff, that's the origins of the guitar riff for the chorus. And I remember around this time I was really writing everything based on guitar because that's just the easiest thing for me to pick up and just bang something out. And I knew I wanted this to be riff oriented. I knew I wanted to do a big drum and bass thing with a riff. So that was where this came from. I just threw up a beat and I started riffing and felt pretty quickly that it was cool but boring and it needed something more to it. So as we'll see in later demos, the riff started changing a little bit more so that it could carry a melody, and the melody that was over the riff changed a little bit so that it was a little more melodic. Here's more fake lyrics. I don't really know what I'm saying. Don't take them too personally or seriously because they don't really mean anything. But it sounds great when you run the whole mix through a distortion box because then you can't really tell what I'm saying anyway, and just a big wall of white noise. So that rhythm that you're hearing behind the beat, the kind of guitar rhythm, is what actually ended up becoming the bridge of the song. I cut the beat in half and took those kind of guitar stabs, and that became the whole middle section of I Can't Wait. And again, I'm glad I did that. There's actually some moments through this whole process, believe it or not, that I listened to, as I was sifting these demos, and I thought, that actually wasn't a terrible idea. I should have ran with that. And I don't remember why I didn't. There's any number of reasons why I change my mind on things. It could be just what I'm feeling in the moment, or I'm inspired by something completely different musically, or the very few people that I let speak into my creative world might have said, dude, that's a really dumb idea. And I listen to them. Actually, they say that about most of my ideas, but I have to make music, so sometimes I have to just say, look, I know it's a dumb idea, but I got to do it anyway, so just get out of my way. This is a little more fleshed out, that kind of, Sabbathy trouble type riff with the kind of stab thing that was in the verses earlier. And there's the kind of growly, whispery vocal thing that was the inception of that kind of idea. And of course it goes into oblivion here. Until they see your face. I don't know what they're going to do when they see your face, but I don't think I knew what they were going to do when they saw my face either, but I just figured I'd say it. So I can hear even in the the vocal kind of concept, I kind of knew what I was listening to at the time and what I was trying to go for. Unfortunately, between this period, which is 2006, and when I actually finished the song, I changed my mind musically pretty drastically. I've said this before in interviews, but maybe never in a commentary. It's like I cut my teeth and grew up listening to metal and much darker, heavier, more aggressive music. And it's like I feel like I think I felt during this creative process that that's what I had to do, is I had to keep creating that kind of stuff because that's what I did, that's what I knew. But to be honest, I listened to very little rock and metal. And at this point, almost none. It just really does nothing for me at all. It just really doesn't motivate me. It doesn't inspire me, even the slightest bit. There are some bands that I still like, and I'm sure there's some new music out that is cool, but I don't particularly care. I'm much more oriented and motivated and inspired by electronic music, the sound of electronics, and that's kind of what inspires me. But I hear the organic influence in here, kind of what I was going for. I was going for something aggressive and, big and mean. And when 2011, I'm getting ready to finish this track and I'm thinking, you know what, I don't want this to be that. God save me, somebody save me. And so I changed directions, and really when I listen back to it, it's still pretty heavy and still aggressive, but a lot less so. I just wanted it to be aggressive and cool, like in an electronic realm, not really in a heavy metal realm. Whatever that means. I think it's the screaming. It kind of scares the kids and the chicks and some of the dudes. So from now on, I'm going to be doing every vocal falsetto, just kind of like the Bee Gees. I'm singing all my songs like the Bee Gees, just high, full of estrogen and wimpiness. It's kind of what they used to call me in school, was wimp. That was directly after they kicked my ass. Which is a good time. It was a good time. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, music, right. I can't wait. So those high kind of fills in between these little verse parts right here. This is somewhere in here is where that idea was born, and I ran with that. I've always liked that idea. Initially started as Don't Let Go of Me. It was just one vocal just over and over again, which changed later. And here's the chorus a little more fleshed out. Changing the progression. There's that riff, but the progression has changed on it so it supports the melody. Fake lyrics, I just kind of, what I sketched. One thing that you'll notice, that I've noticed, is a lot of times when I create sketch lyrics that you hear in these beta sessions things, there are generally some elements still left in the final lyrics, because I feel like I start getting attached to the way I am actually saying the words and how they fit within the context of the music, and I try to find words that are similar, and that ends up keeping me in some kind of similar theme. Themes for songs and ideas for songs have come from just me quickly sketching rough lyrics, and then it inspires an idea, and I'm like, you know what, that's pretty cool. right now. Maybe in 6 years when this comes out, it might not be as cool anymore, but man, I'm feeling it right now. And here's the origins of those kind of like flattened out vocals, which I use Melodyne for. Not really an auto-tune guy at all. I kind of did that a long time ago. And I think Melodyne's just a way better tool. And I really don't like that melody at all. But there it is. You guys can rub it in my face for the rest of my life. You have to kind of wonder what the logic is for someone who would not only take his crappy demos and give them out to the world, but then spend a bunch of time talking over them and explaining them. Why would I must really, really hate myself. I don't know why I do this. But thank you for both of you, the two that are listening right now. I appreciate it. Totally different verse idea. Or maybe it's not. I don't remember what we were actually listening to before this, but I've gone through probably 4, 5, 6, 10 different verse ideas. And I finally came up with the melody that became the verse melody right before I just decided to write the final lyrics. So I came up with the melody, said, yeah, this is what it is, wrote the lyrics, and then promptly went into recording and just did the actual final takes. So I committed to this idea pretty quickly. Lyrically, this song was inspired by some fact, some fiction, and it was culled not only from myself and my own experiences, but from other people I know. And, you know, I do have some friends that are married, and the way they talk about how they met their wife and all these ridiculous things they would do that they would never do for anyone else, and that's how they knew this was the right one. And, you know, it's just kind of like that universal human truth. And it's, you know, part and parcel to life and love and all the rest of it. And that's I convoluted it so badly with these lyrics that you would never really get that, which is okay. Obviously the girl in this song she's pretty naughty. She's not a good girl, but you know, I'm doing stupid things anyway. And maybe this is based on fact, maybe it's based on fiction. It doesn't really matter. But there was a song I remember from my childhood, and it was kind of along those same type of things, and just kind of like, hey, I'm a moth in a flame, and I will willingly get burnt because I dig this chick. And that's kind of like what the vibe of this track is. Again, I don't often go into very much detail in my lyrics because I feel like that will ruin it for many people, because you kind of pull out what you want from the song, and it really doesn't matter what I was inspired by or why I wrote it. I can imagine that if some artist that I really liked or songs that really meant a lot to me, if I had heard them explained by the artist who wrote them, it might completely destroy what I was feeling, you know, or what that track did for me. So I do my best not to really say much about it. But I can sit here and talk for an hour, no problem, about just random stuff that make no sense. So somewhere in here, I wrote a riff, which you're hearing here, which is completely edited up, and I quickly took the existing riff and chopped it up into a million pieces, and I said, okay, this is what that's going to be. Initially, it was a rough idea, and I really liked, after about 1,367 listens, I was like, oh, I really like that, because I've heard it 1,367 times, and I really think that should stay. So cutting the guitars again and recreating that riff was a process of me actually going back many sessions until I could find the original riff, because I didn't remember what the original riff was, and then recutting those guitar parts as that riff, and then dissecting my edits and re-editing the guitars the same way and refining a few things. So when people wonder why it takes me so long to make music, it's because I don't just sit down with guitar, bass, and drums and just bang it out. It's just a ton of editing, and I love it, and I enjoy it, and I love the way it sounds when it's done, so sorry. Shoot me. You're hearing throughout this all these demos, these early demos, a bunch of samples from my E4 XT sampler, and I had an old Moog, an old mini Moog that I created a bunch of patches, just raw synths and sampled into and resampled, and started programming them throughout this whole track. So all that squishy, warbly, Reese type stuff that's down there is this, one particular patch in there from my original mini Moog. Pretty much unprocessed, so it's just really uncontrolled low end, and it's really mushy and no definition, which makes for a really crappy sounding demo, which is the best reason to let you guys listen to them. So more things getting put in place here and taking shape and making sense. It amazes me how many times I could hear this demo process over and over, and I hear such little changes in the demo, and I think back on how much time it actually took to make some of those changes, and it makes me cry. So here I went into some live bass, and I kind of changed the beat to a little more of a shuffly type, stop and go type deal instead of just a straight beat. And I flirted with that for a little while, kind of more of a drum and bass rhythm, and that ended up getting scrapped too. Totally different verse melody. And I didn't even remember that I sang this melody until I went through these demos a couple of days ago. I don't even remember doing this. But you never know, I might take it and use it for something else now that I know that I did it. I remember this when I was trying to fill in the ideas. I was just quickly trying to fill in blanks, so I think I fired up my Virus TI and started finding some patches that would emulate little wobbles and fills and things, and man. Remembering that when I did these demos, I never had any intention for anyone ever to hear them, so I didn't care. I wasn't really concerned about how sonically perfect it was and how well it sat in the mix. It was just more, I was putting the idea in to remind myself that this is what I wanted to do with the track. And then I end up scrapping most of it, generally. There you go. A little more of that kind of D&B kind of rhythm thing. Even though these were live drums. I guess I could tell you that story. The live drums. I just set my kit up in the room that I was working in at the time. It was in one of my old houses, and I threw up one microphone just in front of the kit to get the idea down. And a lot of these drums, not in the final mix, but in the demo, were just from a single microphone sitting in front of my kit in a big open room, just so I can kind of get the ideas down. And I lived with them through all these demos, and they sounded so crappy. Like all that bashing and smashing you're hearing right now is all just me wailing away on this crappy drum kit with not a crappy mic. It's a pretty expensive mic, but it didn't matter. It was just one single microphone. And then I took those drums later on after they're edited, and I knew they weren't going to be in the song, and I ended up using them for a couple of other pieces. I like to recycle because I spend so much time editing, creating, recording, doing all this crap, and then I end up just throwing things away and forgetting I ever created them. So I did get in the habit not too long ago of archiving everything. If I don't use it, I archive it. I create my own sample library. More verse stuff. I think I was searching pretty hard here to find a suitable verse option. And I'm really glad I didn't go with this one. Holy crap, I'm only halfway done? Oh my god. How many demos did I do for this song? Oh, another verse idea. So the only way I can justify this is by, again, reiterating something I spoke only moments ago, that these demos were really never intended for you to hear. So I just kind of would step up to the mic, spit out whatever it would be, both lyrically and harmonically, musically, whatever. And generally it sounds like a big pile of dog crap. And it's a reminder for me. It's a placeholder. So I know what I do, and when I have an idea how to get it from A to Z, and a lot of times sometimes A through like X is generally pretty crappy. It's pretty bad. As it starts getting around Y and Z, it starts really taking shape and sounding way better. There's another idea that I scrapped, probably for good reason. Oh, and there it is. Painfully out of tune. Painfully out of tune, emotionless, and bland. It's exciting. And of course the lyrics were just whatever. And there you go. This flame is coalescing, this fire is burning bright. Those are just kind of sketch ideas that came to my head, and that really kicked off the whole lyrical direction for the verses. So this is that demo I had mentioned earlier where I had gotten the final lyrics written, and I just kind of went in roughly mocking them up and singing them so I can hear if I actually like them. So more just blandness. But it was just really, again, a mock-up for me to kind of listen back to 1,000 times in the car, wherever I was, and just, that's how I do things. I have to hear them over and over, and then something just clicks. I know without a question whether I like it or whether I hate it. And again, I have to have some kind of vision here, because I have to look past the fact that they sound so terrible and go, okay, I know what I'm going to do when I actually try to sing. But for now, this is just one shot. Step up, do it, done. But you can hear musically how these ideas kind of all came together, and this is the basic skeleton for what the song would become. And you're hearing demo everything. Vocals, guitars, bass, drums. I think the drums came from like 4 different sources. There were the live ones I played, and then sometimes I had to fill in because I was rewriting parts and I wasn't going to re-mic my drum kit with one microphone. I was probably in a different building at that time anyway, so I just would have to compensate by just pulling up a drum kit of some sort and just programming. So some of these songs, by the time they were done, I had 3 or 4 different sounding drum kits in one track. And later you'll hear where I went through the track and replaced all the drums with just one kit. I reprogrammed out just a rough rock kit just to kind of get a sense for what it would sound like with consistent drums. And then even further later on, you're going to hear the handiwork of John Whitney, who came in and actually cut drums for the song. And we'll explain some of that when we actually get there. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Now? Oh, thank God.
This flame is coalescing.
So here is a right up front and center main vocal. This is the main vocal melody, and this is actually the final take. And I was probably still working out the harmony part, so I think I just kind of cranked the main melody so I could hear it over and over and make sure that I liked the performance. And here's verse 2 of that same exact thing. This is just kind of the lead vocal. Part of what's been cool about doing like remix competitions with this stuff is I think people get to hear what's actually going on in these songs, because by the time I'm done, you know, I'm 160, 180 tracks deep, and it's so dense and thick that you really can't tell much apart from, you know, one sound from another. So having them separated out and being able to just isolate them, kind of like that vocal was there, just kind of cranked in the mix. So here are the verses put together, main vocal and harmony. Again, I just would comp these together, fix them up, whatever I wanted to do with them, and then I'd crank them in the mix and listen to them over and over again, and go back and tweak little things, replace different words. And not my favorite part of the process, I have to be honest. So we have some holes in the chorus. I don't remember why, but we do. And then later on in the next demo, I think you start hearing the rest of the chorus come together as it's all put together. There's another idea that stuck, was that vocoder. I just kind of had done it way early on in the demo, and I've always liked it. In fact, I lost it for a few years. If you listen to some of these demos, you won't even hear the vocoder in there. And when I came back around in 2011 here, when the song actually came out, and started working on the song again, I brought it back and I featured it because I loved it. I've always been a fan of the vocoder. First time I ever heard Mr. Roboto, it was done, it was over. I remember searching high and low until I could figure out how did they make that sound. It's an alien device called a vocoder. It was brought from a race of Martians. They brought it down from their ship, granted it to the people of Egypt, and they passed it on to us. And now we use it in our modern music. I'm not exactly sure what's different about this demo, but I know there's something. Because I'm still hearing crappy drums, I'm hearing crappy guitars, crappy bass. There was a long point here where all I had really done on all these songs were the vocals. So I was listening to basically finished vocals over crap demos. There you go, that's what's different. The chorus is finalized here. There's no harmony here yet either, and I remember once the harmony was dropped in, it was one of those classic examples of me listening to a track over and over and over, and I just finally realized, you know what, this harmony's driving me crazy, I hate it. I need to change this. So I went back and redid a bunch of different counter melodies until I finally got one that I liked. And then at the very end of the process, I still didn't like the chorus, so I decided to go and kind of throw a vocoder type effect. It wasn't a vocoder. There's a $29 plugin called BitSpeak that I absolutely love and I abuse the crap out of. And you're going to hear it all over the new album, including the Seven Sisters, which isn't even done yet at the time of this recording. That's right, kids, $29. Go spend that money wisely. Harmony. There it is, the harmony that I just kind of detested, and it just kind of got on my nerves. So I had to just dig around for a while until I figured out a solution for how to fix that. And I guess fixing is relative, because maybe some of you like this better, I don't know. And most of you probably don't even know the difference and couldn't care less. And the rest of you aren't even listening to this, so you don't even really know this is happening. Congratulations. So here's that halftime thing with a crappy drum kit that I pulled up in battery, I think. Just some stock drum kit. It just sounded terrible. And some big, warbly synth over the top that just was horrifically in the way. And again, it was just a placeholder, and I knew that I was going to replace it with something.
For just a little while, submit to this embrace.
And still the crappy demo edited guitars. These haven't even been replaced yet.
Submit to this embrace. Pain unfolding.
And the little bridge part, which somewhere over here I talked over, but you'll hear the actual original idea for this, which is really only different because the demo sounds like poop and the vocals sound like poop and the lyrics are completely different. I think we're getting into guitar cuts here, where I actually cut real guitars, because they don't sound as murky and out of tune as the demos. So what Grant Moorman and I kind of did in this is strip out a bunch of crap that we didn't need in there and just start cutting guitars. And then these kind of got edited down and processed.
This flame is coalescing. This fire's burning bright. I know I'll get burned, but it's alright.
And there's a little counter melody guitar part that's missing in here. I can hear it. So this is definitely probably just the first pass of guitars. By the time we're done with the song, cutting tracks, specifically guitars, you're probably looking at anywhere between 8 to 12 tracks of guitars. So much for being an electronic artist, huh?
Don't be with you right now. Anyway, reckless. So what? I can't wait to be around you.
What I'm feeling right now as I'm listening back to this is kind of like the process of giving birth. And I've never actually given birth. I've seen a couple of videos. I think they had it on, was it Knocked Up or something? I think you got to see the baby coming out. A little crowning action. But I've never actually given birth. I can imagine it's pretty painful. It looks like it's pretty painful. And this is actually the joy that comes out when the kid's out of you and you're like, oh my God, my vagina feels so much better. And it's because, you listen to these crappy demos for so long and you're carrying around this weight, and then finally, like, you actually hear the idea come together and sound good for the first time, in this case, in like 5 or 6 years. So I started going, wow, okay, this is taking shape. This song is actually going to get done. I can't believe it. I'm going to deliver this baby. It's ready or not, world. Here it comes. So, the halftime bridgey thing, I think I had changed out the beat here. I just kind of grabbed a drum loop from somewhere just to more emulate what I wanted. So I wanted something that sounded a little more synthetic and a little more loop-based. And in the final product, it was actually just the live drums that I kind of processed a few different ways to make it sound a little more gnarly and loopy. And, you give me another couple of weeks. If you guys weren't pestering me to get these stupid songs out, I could have spent another couple of weeks editing them even more, but... Okay, so here's where I started flirting with getting some new synth sounds in that intro. And this was really nebulous for a really long time, and I just, like I said, I had placeholders in there and I knew kind of what I wanted to do. And now here's where I started actually plugging in some real sounds and sifting through, dozens and dozens and dozens of tracks to figure out what was happening where and how to make room for this sound and getting rid of this so that there's room for that, and stacking these synths and sampling and resampling and running through different processing, both internal and external, and resampling and remixing, and you get it. You guys are smart. Well, you can't be that smart if you're listening to this whole commentary, because, man, if you're still awake, I don't know. I don't know how you're doing it. I'm putting myself to sleep. started layering some synths in here to kind of give the guitars a little more edge, but they're not mixed great. And I think this is when I wrote this part. We started cutting guitars, and I never felt like this part was finished, so I wrote that riff right there and felt like the vocals needed to go over that instead of that other riff that preceded it, which is the way it was for years in the demo. So you can hear that Reese I was referring to earlier, my little E4 XT Reese from my Mini Moog, my sample. That was prevalent in this whole intro. In fact, it's pretty prevalent through this whole song. And then you'll hear also a lot more work that I did on a lot of these intro synths. And it's sad because when I listen back to it and I feel like I have to explain it, it almost feels ridiculous because you guys listening to it probably go, well, it's just like one little sound or two little sounds. So I guess I could explain it, but you don't really totally understand. Unless you try to do it, that generally you don't just pull up a sound and hit a button and there it is. It's like there's a lot of processing, and especially with this kind of stuff, there was a lot of processing. Oh, thank God. Live drums. So I can finally get into the live drum story. So I have this friend, Shane Grush, who has historically, for some reason, been my drum doctor. He's been my drum connection. And he hooked up Jared Montague from Taproot on the first album, and when he found that I was looking for a drummer on this album, he's like, hey man, I know this dude from this band City Sleeps. They broke up, and I think the dude's out west somewhere, and I'll hit him up and see if maybe you guys can work something out. And lo and behold, he did, and John Whitney and I ended up getting on the phone and talking through a bunch of things, and I sent him some demos, and he's like, yeah man, let's make this happen. So I flew him out, and we holed up in my studio for a few days and just tracked a ton of drums. Not even just for Wish Upon a Blackstar stuff, but even stuff beyond that. We just kind of capitalized on all the time he had here, which was a day and a half or 2 days, so it really wasn't a lot of time, but all he did was play drums, and I think he farted a couple of times. I don't remember. I think he did, though. But again, here's another part of that birthing process where I have had these drums in my head, and in demo form they sound like crap, but in my head I know what they're supposed to sound like, and now that I actually get to hear them come to fruition, and it's pretty exciting for me because I that means I'm one step closer to getting this baby out my vag. Like, go away, I'm done with you. 5 or 6 year labor, give me a break. I think only trolls have 5 or 6 year gestation periods. Well, this is the last idea, and this is something I actually just took stems when I was bouncing out stems for the remix competition. I just took a few little things and I dropped them in together, and I was working on a vocal idea or some type of vocal processing, which is the effect you're hearing right now, with a new piece of gear I had in the studio, and I just decided to use I Can't Wait as the guinea pig. So I ran the actual verse vocal, the main verse vocal, through the gear, and I just banged out some melodies on a keyboard, and you're hearing it right now. There's really nothing special about it, but I figured I would throw it on here because maybe you guys would want to hear it, because I'm probably never going to do anything with it. So that'd be that. I hope you guys enjoyed the droll, monotone verbiage I've been spewing at you over these demos. I'll catch you on Gift for You. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to part 2 of the commentary for Wish Upon a Blackstar Chapter 4. This is the Gift for You version of the commentary, where I'm going to ramble over 10 demos or so for the song Gift for You, which is on Chapter 4. So let's get into it. Gift for You has been around for a while. This demo originated in 2005, and this is one of the rare times where a song is not really inspired by a musical idea for me. It's actually inspired by a lyrical idea. And I remember it very distinctly because I had bought my first house in Michigan. I had moved from New York, came to Michigan. I still don't know why, but I did. And it had snowed like it does here all the frickin' time. And I think I was shoveling my own driveway out, and I kind of looked into my yard and I see this like pipe sticking up, and I'm like, what is that? And someone had told me that it was a well. I actually had a well. We didn't have those in New York. I didn't really know what that was. And for some reason, for the first time in my life, the the phrase "poison in the well" or "poison the well" made total sense to me. I'm like, oh, because if you wanted to kill someone, you can just pour poison in their well and whatever they're drinking. Wow, that's just, man. So I really had never been exposed to that kind of very simple truth. So that just actually inspired a whole idea right there. And I remember just writing lyrics, not really even knowing what I was going to do with them musically. My main concern was really just getting the lyrical idea down. So somewhere along the way, and I can't really remember if it was like 5 minutes from then or 5 months from then, I started tinkering around with a few different soft synths, and I came up with this bass line that I really liked. And I decided I want this thing to be kind of a down-tempo type thing, and I just started banging out some vibe, just some vibe, and the lyrics just really made sense. And so I just kind of threw up a microphone and started singing some ideas, and it fit really well in my mind. So these are one of those songs that I really love to write because they actually speak musically about a very specific period in my life, and this was definitely that period. Like, this vibe of this track was totally where I was in my life, and for me, I know what that vibe is, and I'm not even going to try to describe it to you. It doesn't really matter. But as crappy as these demos sound now to me, back then it was a fresh idea, so I saw through the crap production. I didn't care. I would just go and drive around in my car at night alone, listening to this over and over and over again, and just not even really thinking about what I was going to do musically. I was just absorbing the vibe that this thing was creating. And it's very rare that I get that privilege, because a lot of times I'm creating music and it's more utilitarian, and it's like I have to release an album, or I'm doing something for film and television and that kind of thing. And then when I write these songs that are more emotive and totally relative to my life at the moment, I really kind of relish those moments. So this was a later revision, and I think I had started sprinkling in some additional production with little strings and pianos, and later went back and decided to remove all that. The song itself was very linear. It was really one progression all the way through. The original demo was really one bass line all the way through. Here is where I actually decided to pick up a live bass and start playing the same exact progression, but with a live bass in the chorus. But this is still a far, far cry from the final song, which is rife with edits and little synths and ear candy. I originally thought this was just going to be a very simple track, and I was going to keep it very linear, very monotone. I just wanted the vibe. But true to form, I can't leave well enough alone, and I start getting in, and I find new sounds, and I'm inspired by new ideas, and it takes me months to get a song done when it could take me 10 minutes. So you hear pretty quickly, only the first two demos were the really rough ones, and the next time I actually touched this song was to actually work on it for Wish Upon a Blackstar. This thing sat in a bin of songs that I thought I would never really have time to release, and when I started conceptualizing the full album of Wish Upon a Blackstar, I really wanted this to be on there. And many of you know I only committed to 10 songs. I was like, Wish Upon a Blackstar is 10 tracks. You already know what they are. I've given you the names for all the songs. And so when I announced this, it was almost like a bonus. Like, hey, there's going to be 11. And now we're probably up to like 14. I don't even know what it's going to be now. But there's definitely a lot more than 10. And this was one of those, one of the songs that I just loved the vibe, and it definitely still was relative to that moment in my life, although I'm in a very different place now than I was then. But I could say that about my whole entire first album. Thank God I'm not in that same place. But it completely was about me in that moment, and that was my life in a very real way, and that will always be a part of me. And I'm grateful for the many of you who have written in or spoken to me at shows and told me how, a certain song or the whole album had affected you and helped you through a time or whatever. That's cool. That actually really is cool to hear that, because there are times you sit here as a as an artist, and I hate to use that word because it sounds so pretentious, but to be a quote-unquote artist, and a lot of times you question what you're even doing and why you're even doing it, and it's when you say that kind of stuff, for me personally, it reminds me of why I do it. So you kind of hearing already some little sprinklings of the ideas that I started putting throughout this whole track, just kind of cutting holes in the audio and filling them in with kinds of, reeses and wobbles and growls and all that kind of stuff. And that really just started, as I started hearing myself do little suggestions of that, I knew I was just going to take it even further. And then, of course, by the time the song was done, it just was ridiculous. So this used to be just a straight up bass line, an organic bass, an electric bass, and I just played the riff over and over, and then I just started chopping up audio, and I started chopping chunks of the bass line out and inserting other sounds to kind of fill the gap. And it didn't sound great to me then, but I knew, again, this is another case where I knew where it was going to go. I knew where it was heading, so I have to work through a lot of relatively crappy ideas to get to a final product. Here's another crappy idea, this whole string. I was trying to create a counter melody, and I did create a counter melody, it just wasn't a good one. Or it was just something I decided not to keep. I can't remember at this point. Could be both. In my early demos, I really never had an ending. So this is where I started, I think, flirting with maybe I just have the whole thing kind of break down and fade away. Some of these drums are actually left over from the original demo. Not all of them, but some of them. So here's my first stab at kind of fleshing out the verse vocals. The original vocal has always been just a single voice, and it was just one single melody. And I knew that I wanted more to happen, but I didn't want to do like a barbershop quartet, so I kind of did an electronic version of that, I guess. I just wanted the vocal to feel fuller and more fleshed out, kind of counter melodies, things like that, without taking away from the vibe. I wanted it to actually accentuate the vibe. And, maybe sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. The sad truth about this song in particular is it really captured a great vibe for me, as I explained earlier, with those kind of rough early demos. And the more I worked on it and the more I heard it, the more desensitized I really was to the whole vibe. So I listen to the song now and it doesn't nearly carry the emotional weight that it did when I first wrote it, which is typical. I generally finish a track and that would be the last time I'll ever listen to it. Every once in a while, maybe every 5 years, I'll go back and go, oh, I remember that. But I generally don't really listen to anything once it's done. So through this process of editing, creation, more creation, cutting, more editing, you've heard a song or you've heard parts so many times that you just start to lose the reason you fell in love with it to begin with, or why you liked the idea originally. And then it becomes like, okay, hey, I need to finish this song. So what is a really cool creative idea? And let's get this finished. So it's not, at some point I guess it's like any relationship. You fall in love with someone and it's great in the beginning, but at some point you kind of get into a groove and things just kind of settle down and you're not feeling the same things you did initially. And so I apparently have intimate love relations with every song I write. Some of them are gentle and loving, and others are a little on the rough side.
I still can't remember how the soul began. There's one thing
As you can hear, there was my idea for the word left in that verse, and I had later replaced that with Jenny Jackknife, who came in and cut vocals on this track. I thought it was kind of cool to have her voice kind of offset mine in this track and kind of just become another somewhat sinister vibe, but from a feminine perspective. Maybe I'm reading into it too much, but I really love it. Good job, Jenny. So this is kind of the ending again, breaking down, and very early ideas I had messed with. My favorite plugin, Bitspeak, $29, right there. So here is a version before I had actually put Jen's vocals in this intro, like they are now. They come in a little later, but here there was nothing, and I just kind of started with this synth. The original demo really just kind of just dropped into a sub and just started. And I knew I had wanted to take this in steps, so I wanted to build it, and I just kind of dug around until I found the right synth and felt like it created the right vibe. And then adding Jen's voice to this whole deal just took it another notch up for me. And then the editing fun began as I added more and more and more. And there is a very weak sounding E4 synth. That was the beginnings of what would become the kind of angry growl that drops in that place right now. It was based on that, but there's a lot more layers going on than just this synth now in the final version. I feel like I should start rapping or something because I'm in a vocal booth and the lights are dim and kind of got this vibe going here, but I don't know how to rap. You can hear the vocal taking a little more shape like it ended up in the final. I started with a certain type of processing that had maybe 4 voices to it, and then I also added later on another vocoder underneath it. So I blended 2 different styles of vocal processing to create a bunch of different counter melodies and kind of lush out that vocal a little bit more. I did mention in a post on Facebook that I wrote this song for all the dickheads who used to beat me up in elementary school, and this is for all the people who got bullied around. I didn't actually really write the song about them. I wouldn't really give them that much credit, but it definitely relates to that kind of situation, and I'm sure that you can relate that to anything you want in your life. And maybe if you are fortunate this song doesn't relate to your life at all, then you can count your blessings. The rest of us are going to just make a mixtape with just this song on it and give it out to the people that deserve it.
And I've got a gift for you. I've got a gift for you. A special place in hell. I've got a gift for you.
Here's where I started flirting with different ideas in the chorus. I actually decided to do a really high vocal myself, which wasn't in the original demo. I kind of wanted to sound like a mini choir, although I don't think that really is how it ended up in the final version, but in my mind it is. I wanted to sound like a mass of voices, but a small mass, not a big mass. It's kind of contradictory, isn't it? Yeah, this is a way stripped down version of the ending where there's a lot less going on. Which I'm sure is preferable to a lot of people, but you probably aren't a fan of me because I've never really been simple. I don't really know how to do it. If someone can give me simplicity lessons, I'm definitely willing to pay for those. Teach me how to be simple. I mean, I'm mentally simple, but musically I'm not. I'm not very simple at all.
Got a gift for you. Poison in the well. I've got a gift for you. A special place in hell.
So just more working on synths and different parts in this chorus. The vocals are kind of a little more fleshed out. Although I can hear that they're not completely done in this version yet, processing-wise. A lot of these synths and these little stabby things just don't really sound as mean as they needed to be. So I would get these ideas in place and then starting the process of sampling and resampling and running through plugins and outboard gear and through my SSL console, running it through there, doing some EQing and bouncing it back in. And it's a long process to kind of finally get the sound that you feel is right and legit. What was that dude screaming about? I don't know, but I got rid of it because I didn't like it. And this is definitely sounding much more like the final. I don't know if you can hear it, but I can because I'm familiar with every intimate detail of what has been programmed and what was changed. And I will do my best over the next few years to try to forget.
I've got a gift for you. Poison in the well. I've got a gift for you. A special place in hell.
So things in general are starting to brighten up here and get much more aggro and kind of sounding more in the world of where they needed to be. So I can tell this is getting closer to a final product. Although this is pre-mix, so why don't you shut up? Okay, cool. So I remember through this creative process, I started with a very simple idea, and as I started fleshing more and more out, I started piling more and more sounds on top of each other, and then I had to actually go back, which is often the case, and undo a lot of things and kind of figure out, okay, I have 30 things going on here, I can only have 10. So I got to get rid of 2/3 of what's going on here. And that happens quite a bit in my tracks, because you really can't get it. You can't get 30 elements working together. I've tried for a really long time, and it just ends up sounding like a wall of white noise. So it is the ever constant struggle for me to fit in all the ideas I have into one track and actually make them work. And if I made music a little more quickly, I could just get all my ideas out in different tracks and just save them for just totally different songs. And that's kind of what I'm working towards right now. So thanks for hanging with me, boys and girls. I'm out of here.